Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. After running through the news you need to know about, we run you through the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions. This first news story has been circling. Hopefully a deal gets done soon. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins continue to talk extension with defensive tackle Christian Wilkins. According to Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald, the Dolphins continue to, quote, exchange numbers with Christian Wilkins. And again, that comes from the Miami Herald. There's actually some other quotes here. Barry goes on to say there is still a gap in negotiations, but there's still a lot of a lot of optimism that a new deal will get done. The quote is Barry says, there remains optimism. It's gonna be interesting to see because obviously the defensive tackle market. You think about Aaron Donald, Jeffrey Simmons, who obviously just signed that deal. What that looks like for Christian Wilkins. It also could free up some cap space. The Dolphins are still waiting for that Byron Jones stuff to kind of clear up. Which could also alter the deal if they do go after someone like Dalvin Cook. If he were to hit free agency, it seems that this could be a domino effect. Cedric Wilson on the trade block. The only way they can even save cap is if someone trades for him. They can't cut him. So it does kind of seem like they're trying to make cap space earlier on. Maybe that has ties to Dalvin Cook. Maybe they do want to get that deal done. Because if the Vikings do cut him, you would want that sense of urgency from the Dolphins to get some of these dominoes to fall so you could afford someone like Dalvin Cook. Because if Dalvin hits the open market, then that's going to be, to me, he's going to be a lot harder to acquire at that point. Especially with the way the cap space looks for the Dolphins. I guess the other argument that could be made is that maybe teams will wait till after the draft. Maybe the Vikings will also wait till after the draft to cut him. There's a lot of stuff going on. But the Christian Wilkins deal would not only help the Dolphins in the near future, but he's a great player. I remember when he was drafted out of Clemson. I think he was 14 or 13. I can't remember. But, the first few years where we didn't really know. Now he's one of my favorite Dolphins. He's one of the best Dolphins. That season he had this past year, one of the best seasons I've seen him from a Dolphin. If we made a top 10 Dolphins of the last decade or the last 15 years, he would easily be on it. He's a great player. He's turned himself into a great player. He might go down as one of the best defenders in Dolphins history if you can kind of keep it up. He's a great, fans love him. He's a great glue guy. Seems like a great leader in the locker room. Just beloved around the league as well. I love Christian Wilkins to death. Great player, fan favorite. Hopefully he retires in the aqua and orange. He can go down as one of the better Dolphins defenders because I think he has a great opportunity to. Definitely one of the best front seven players in the history of the franchise. But it does seem like, because there's no real urgency to get a deal done. Right, I guess you would like to get a deal done in the offseason before free agency and the season starts, obviously. But I don't know. I feel like maybe they're working towards something. I don't know. And we'll talk about that here in a second. And I guess we'll talk about it now. I hope they get a deal done with Christian because, like I just said, one of my favorite players. I think under Vic Fangio, and I've said this a million times about everybody, but he definitely can. Even if he just turns in the same year he just had, it doesn't. It's really hard to get better than that because Christian had such a good year last year. But he's a great player with a great defense coordinator that just spells greatness. But him and Zach Sealer, just phenomenal defensive tackle duo. Excuse me. So, yeah, it would be phenomenal to get the deal done on every angle you could look at it. But moving on to the next news story, we just talked about it. It's not really Dolphins related, but I know fans keep talking about it. It's a big topic with Dolphins fans. It's a big topic on some of the articles that I've seen with all the rumors swirling around Dalvin Cook. His agent said something really stupid. I think it was his agent on a podcast where he was talking about, he's put up Hall of Fame numbers, but he plays for the Vikings. I was like, okay. I don't know. That was just a weird comment. So it doesn't seem like he'll be a Viking, especially after comments like that. So it kind of comes down to, is it a smart move to acquire someone like Dalvin Cook? When you look at running backs in the history of the league, when they make a second stop, other than maybe like Eric Dickerson is probably the most successful one, unless I'm forgetting someone right now, it doesn't usually work out for the most part, like almost 9 times out of 10. Now, obviously, some of those are case-by-case basis. A lot of those are different. A lot of those guys, especially when you talk about the great players in the NFL, even then, then they don't really, especially we're talking about the running back position and the greats of that position, when they make their second stop, they're not as good. LaDainian Tomlinson, he was not the same. He was serviceable, but he wasn't the same. He was kind of a pitch count playmaker. It's the best way I can explain it. So my point is it doesn't really work out ever. I mean, Todd Gurley, the list goes on and on. Adrian Peterson, but again, some of those were unique cases. Like, a lot of those guys were too old. A lot of, the Emmitt Smith one's probably the most famous one. There's Amon Green. I can't remember who was the player that was a Texan and then went to, I can't remember where he went, but he was terrible. Maybe he got an extension with Houston. But my point is there's bad mojo when running backs change teams. It's very rare. I can't really think of one that was like a home run compared to some of the other positions when they hit free agency. I guess Christian McCaffrey would be probably one of the better examples, but I don't know, how old is Dalvin Cook. I say all this to say is I know Dolphins fans want it to happen. I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but at the same time, if you start really thinking about it, the pros and cons are interesting to say the least. I don't know if it would they have a second round pick. There is possibly, you have an opportunity to, by the way, Dalvin Cook's 27 years old. You have a possibility to just draft one in the second round. The argument against that, and I've thought about this a lot, is that, there are some really good offensive linemen in this draft that I've actually started to get into it. There's a few of them that I'm like, okay, if this guy could fall there, there's guards that's pretty deep there. There's a center they could possibly, I don't think they will, but maybe they move, Connor out of there. I don't think that's the best idea. But the guard from Florida, whose name's escaped, he's really good. So there's opportunities there to improve the front line. That would be the argument against using the pick on a running back, which to me, the front line is more important, especially with the way that Tua's health has been. I don't... I think that's just not even close to an argument. So my point is that, there are definitely pros and cons to this. Do running backs, when they change teams, work out most of the time? No, they do not. Is it smart to pay a lot of cap to a running back and get into a bidding war when he's on the open market? No, it is not. Is there a pro to him being signed in free agency? Yes. You still have that second round pick. You could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So, I mean, there's definitely pros and cons to it. It just kind of depends on where you land, I guess. I don't really know. I know that if Dalvin Cook was a Dolphin, it would be very exciting, obviously. He fits the scheme. He can affect the game in the pass game, whether it's receiving, or he's obviously a phenomenal running back, and he would be a great player in the scheme. His skill set fits the scheme to a T. He's ran in a scheme like this before. So there's a lot of pros that you can kind of convince yourself. And it would make the Dolphins a better team. It really would. To add another playmaker, to take some pressure off of Tua as well. So I'm definitely team, if they can somehow pull that off, which, again, a lot of dominoes will have to fall for them to do that. Beat other competitors if he is cut. Free cap space up. But if they can get the deal done with Dalvin Cook, they could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. They could go out there and get a tackle, or honestly freeze them. I mean, what other position would they get at that point? Maybe tight end in the second round. Maybe someone like a Darnell Washington who can help the physicality of the run game a little bit. But it definitely would narrow down the needs for the team, that's for sure. But then again, I don't know. I go back and forth on this. I don't know how much of this is like. I mean, it is true that they did inquire about a trade, so they have been interested in Dalvin Cook. Who knows what'll happen? I think it's kind of one of those things that's up in the air at this point. He is a Miami kid, so there's things pointing towards it, and I think it's like there are definitely pros and cons to it as well. This last news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. The Dolphins have signed Robbie Anderson. Obviously, he changed his name to Chosen Anderson, but I saw a lot of people were confused about that. As was I when I looked at it. I was like, I didn't know he changed his name. So the Dolphins signed him to a 1-year deal. Obviously, he had stints with Carolina and then New York. Obviously, Dolphins fans would probably know him when he was a Jet. And then obviously he had a few games with the Cardinals last year when he had that incident on the bench and the Panthers kicked him out of their building. And he honestly, if you've seen Panthers games, one of the issues with him was that, and this was a big problem with him, his effort, especially last year and on some of these losing teams that he's been a part of in recent memory, it was god awful and it contributed to the losing. His effort was bad and he did not play like he wanted to be in the NFL. I know that he even floated retirement stuff when he was with the Panthers. So this dude's kind of a weirdo. I'm just going to be honest. He's kind of a weird duck, an odd duck. You don't know what you're going to get with Robbie Anderson. You could get the I don't really care Robbie Anderson in Carolina. You could get the year one Carolina / Jet where he was a great deep threat and a really good number 2 receiver. You could get that guy. But you don't, like I said, I don't know who they're going to get. If you look at Robbie's recent seasons, and I think people need to realize he's always been, I want to say, like, not always, but in recent years, not in recent years, his first few years is what I meant to say, I'm sorry. From 2016 to 2020, he never had below 500 yards receiving. You know, he has over, how many touchdowns does he have in his career? He's over 29 receiving touchdowns in his career, 5,000 career receiving yards. The best thing that he does is his speed is really special. His yards per catch have always been great. Yards per reception, it's been at 15. It's been plus 10 for literally his entire career, basically. So there is something in there that the Dolphins that is special. And if you get the Robbie Anderson from 2016 through 2020, if you get that guy who still likes to play in the NFL and still is giving quality effort, you're getting a really good receiver who can definitely play in the scheme, fits in the scheme, can play off the other two guys. He can definitely take that Trent Sherfield role. You know, they could do a lot of crazy stuff with Robbie Anderson. If you have Robbie Anderson, Waddle, and Hill all on the same, that's the fastest receiving. That's not even close. Like, that's an insanely fast receiving. Like, it could be really something special if he can just get his head on straight and can kind of come in with someone who, this is your last chance in the NFL. He's going to have a ton of competition for reps with Azukama and Braxton Berrios. And again, maybe maybe he can kind of revitalize his career a little bit and kind of get that fire under him again. And maybe he'll find, because this team is fun, it's a really good team, it's a contending team, maybe that'll kind of get and this is the best team he's ever been on. So maybe that stuff will help him give maximum effort. And I'm excited to see what he can do in preseason and in the offseason. You know, I think if we're being real, he's not a great run blocker. He's he's really skinny. He's never been a physical player. But he can take over that Trent Sherfield role. Now, Trent did block a lot, so I'm not saying that he's going to do that. But some of the route trees that, the deep over routes off of play action, some of the stuff that Trent did in the passing game deep posts, like I said, deep over routes, drag routes, stuff like that. I think is the same route tree that Trent had when he did spell Waddle or Hill. I think Robbie can totally do those things at a higher level too. I think Robbie's way more talented at the receiver position than Trent is. It just comes down to what Robbie Anderson you're gonna get. Out of like classic, like all time, I don't care what's happening in this game, low effort players. Robbie, he ranks up there with, Jay Cutler, and I'm trying to think of who's Albert Hainsworth. Like he's an all time player, like low effort kind of a guy, which hopefully he doesn't bring that to Miami. But again, they can have something. There's something that they could totally unlock there, and it could be really, really special if he can kind of, like I said, revitalize his career, and that lineup would be pretty crazy if he can do that. That's it for the news, ladies and gentlemen. I think we pretty much covered it. It's, obviously that's that time of the year that everybody can be a Dolphin. You see some of the Devin White stuff. I mean, it's, first of all, the Devin White thing. Now that would be amazing. I mean, Devin White's just a great player. Anytime you add a great player to your team, it's obviously a big deal. If you told me who would you rather have, Dalvin Cook or Devin White, I would pick Devin White. But in terms of need, Dalvin Cook definitely outranks the need of another middle linebacker. That is just a fact. They signed David Long for a reason. He's a young player who's going to get an opportunity to play, and he played at a very high level when he was healthy. So I just don't see the reason of spending even more assets on that position. They still have Jerome Baker on the roster, who I believe is a good player and can do some good things in this league if he's coached right. And I think Vic Fangio can do that. So, some of the Devin White stuff is obviously just a bunch of nonsense. The Dalvin Cook stuff that was reported by Barry Jackson, that the Dolphins tried to engage what the feeling was with Cook. That's real. The Devin White stuff doesn't seem that there's really any connection there at all, other than fandom. So let's get into the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions. This first question comes from Richard Rodriguez. He says, "What's the priority in the draft? Tight end or offensive tackle?" To me, it's tackle. That doesn't seem to be the case with what this regime believes. Maybe that's not true. Like, I just cannot, for the love of everything in this world, and God bless Tua Tagovailoa, how in the world are you going to... I just feel like we've seen enough of Austin Jackson. Like, what else do we need to see? The man is the reason, AJ Epinesa decapitated Tua. Was that 2 years ago at this point? But he's literally gotten him hurt before. So, and broke his ribs. So, I just don't get it. Austin is a very talented player. We've talked about it before. I just feel like, all right, let's go get someone who can compete. I wouldn't be mad if they took a guard to help out in the run game. The Florida guard who is better at pass protection. I don't think he gave up a sack in college. I just cannot remember his name right now. He didn't give up a sack in college. But someone like that who can help the front out, we need to invest in it a little bit more. And so to me, it's offensive line. Tight end would be really cool too. There's a lot of really, intriguing prospects at that position that obviously Dolphins fan you could talk yourself into pretty quick. So, but I would say offensive line to answer your question. This next question comes from Casey Fanatic. He says, with the draft around the corner, who and what position would you like at 52? I mean, this is one of the weirder. I don't know what they're gonna do with that pick, but okay, being purely you know what? Honestly, if I was Chris Greer and I was looking at the board, my favorite players in this draft for the Dolphins to pick probably there's 4 of them. Darnell Washington, the Florida guard, Jahmyr Gibbs, Laporta, and the tackle. I I can't remember his name. I think he plays for Kansas State, maybe. I I should have had these guys listed, um, but I can't remember his name. There's also the North Dakota State guy, offensive lineman who has no front teeth. He's pretty good, but I think those are probably my four guys: Gibbs, the Florida guard, Laporta, and Washington. If I was there, I would probably take the Florida guard. I think that's just important. It's really important to get more physical on the front line. You could, move Hunt back to tackle if you wanted to. I just like when I see a really good player like that who could help out the Dolphins and help us out. That's kind of the stuff that I would probably. It's hard to pick over Gibbs though. I really like Gibbs a lot. Maybe I would go Gibbs. I don't know. That's a tough decision. It would be between those two. I think. Even I'm not really sure about what I would do, but I think I would end up taking the guard, in my opinion. And I know some people have him going in the first round. He probably won't even be there in the second round, and Gibbs probably won't be either. And maybe they end up, like, if Washington's on the board, maybe you go tight end. It depends on where the linemen are at that point. But it's a kind of a deep class with some of the offensive linemen. This next question comes from SM. He says, not really a nice question, but in your mind, which player left the team down the most last season? Bridgewater, Tua, Austin Jackson, Byron Jones, Emmanuel Ogbah, or Cedric Wilson? The player that I dislike the most on that list is Bridgewater. Austin Jackson got hurt. We never really got to see him. And Emmanuel Ogbah the same way. Like, he got hurt. I love Emmanuel Ogbah. But Byron Jones, he also injured. So yeah, I would say Bridgewater. Like, he was supposed to be the security blanket for the team if something happened to Tua, and he was just a big L. Like, he was bad. He made the Dolphins worse. His hit, dude, I cannot do it anymore. I'm telling you guys something right now. We've as a collective fandom and fan base, we've just watched so many bad quarterbacks come through here that it just, anytime I'm like, I just can't do this anymore. And not that I would ever stop being a fan, but it makes me even more upset watching this stuff. It just kind of compounds, man. Like it is something to watch when you see especially when we're talking about what Teddy and Skylar did. They left a lot of plays out there on the field. Skylar looked like a chicken with his head cut off out there. He didn't know what was going on sometimes. He was clearly a prisoner of the moment, and what I mean by that is, like, some of that stuff got to him. Like, you could tell he's like, I'm in an NFL game right now. Teddy Bridgewater, just, I don't know where his confidence comes from. God bless him. He's maybe an irrational confidence person, but holy Lord. And we're talking about misplays and bad turnovers. There's nothing worse in the world than that. Games we should have won. We should have been easily a 10-win team. It's not even a debate. And just, oh my God, there were just if you look at the difference when Tua was in the game, Reek and Waddle didn't have any touchdowns when Waddle's production just went off a cliff and it's not his fault. It's just these two idiots couldn't make a read on the field, and that's one of the weird things about Teddy that doesn't make any sense. And it's a bad combination. You can't be a pocket passer, and his mobility has gotten worse as he's gotten older, obviously with all the knee injuries and operations. But good Lord have mercy, man. He cannot see the field very well. He doesn't move in the pocket like he used to. He just was bad. I don't want him to talk about Teddy Bridgewater anymore. He was just bad. So I'll pick Teddy Bridgewater. Anyway, that's it for the show. I hope you guys enjoyed the Robbie Anderson stuff. That could be something if his attitude changes. And again, maybe him being on a really good team and maybe he realizes, like, this is it. I don't know. Maybe that can help him out. But And one thing I will say before I sign out here, it does not change the slot position at all. I don't think Robbie will play that position, and maybe he will. I don't know. I just don't know if he's physical enough to play that position in the scheme. Braxton can block, so I don't know necessarily if he'll compete for that position. So that slot position is still wide open. We'll see what happens in preseason. It's going to be real interesting. Receiver is definitely one of those more interesting units to watch for sure. And I can't remember who said it, but it was on the Bleacher Report Twitter stuff. And maybe it was a beat writer who said this, but they were talking about how Mike McDaniel values skill positions. And yeah, he does. I mean, so far from what we've seen, and maybe that changes in the draft. Maybe we do go offensive line there, but clearly he does. He likes people who can make something happen in space and who are playmakers. And Robbie Anderson, he obviously values that in receivers, and he can definitely do that if he can kind of kick it back into gear. But the possibilities of, even if Braxton is another guy who you add him into that pot, that is a special unit. So that is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.